being killed just for being associated with people who were involved in that lifestyle. Families were fractured.
These federal drug sentencing laws were intended to punish major traffickers, but the small quantities that trigger mandatory minimum sentences for crack cocaine have primarily entangled street-level sellers, lookouts, and couriers. As a result, thousands of young blacks are incarcerated while the drug trade persists. Taxpayers' dollars are being spent on low-level dealers, and the traffickers maintain their business.
At the end of the day, I'm not sure how important it is to think about, well, were the people who passed this law racist in their intent? I think the answer is no, they weren't racist in their intent, including the many white Republicans who voted for it. It was foreseeable that it was going to result in many more African Americans being locked up. But again, at the time, I think the thought was that that's in the best interest of the community. We just didn't know it would have this result that, for example, in Baltimore, half of the young black men have a criminal case.
Like Eric Sterling, several of those who supported the law in the 80s now see the harm in having sent thousands of people to prison for low-level offenses and are now taking action by advocating reform.
But the law obviously has this all mixed up. The law talks about cocaine and cocaine base. This law all comes from 1986, and I helped write this law as counsel to the House Judiciary Committee.
Indeed, more than 60% of federal crack cocaine defendants in 2006 had only low-level involvement in drug activity.
Government doesn't do everything that's right. We all know that. But sometimes it does some things that are just outrageous. And the disparity of 1 to 100, a sentence of 19 years or 24 years or 19 years again, is truly outrageous.
Cocaine in general and crack in particular reached an epidemic proportion in some communities that something needed to be done. And no one would dispute that. That's around the time that I was a prosecutor. So I agree, something needed to be done with cocaine in general. But what was done, this draconian sentencing regime, just had horrible consequences, especially in the African American community.
Well, we have allowed this disparity in crack cocaine to just sit along the wayside.
I mean, that's all that matters. I'm like, that doesn't even sound right.
In 1989, Kimba Smith met Peter Hall while a 19-year-old sophomore at Hampton University. After having been raised in a protective, middle-class community near Richmond, Virginia, Smith spent the next 4 years in an abusive relationship with Hall. He was 8 years older and the leader of a crack cocaine ring. Due to the harsh mandatory minimum sentences for crack cocaine and associated federal conspiracy laws, Smith was sentenced to 24 years in prison as a first-time nonviolent offender. The court would not consider that her failure to report Hall was because she feared for her life.
Due to my relationship with a particular individual who was a drug dealer while I was a student at Hampton University, kind of got caught up in the wrong crowd, and the relationship ended up turning abusive. Initially, I didn't know to the full complexity of his involvement or the drug trade, but after the abuse occurred, there were certain things that I did know that he participated in. I would see him come on campus and pick up other upperclassmen women who were on the dean's list or in sororities. And I believe, when I eventually became his girl, that I pretty much thought the same way some of those other young ladies felt as far as, what he did was his business and what my thing was school. But ultimately, like I mentioned previously, that the relationship turned abusive. There were certain things that I did do that were involved with the conspiracy. The prosecutor handling my case said that I never handled, used, or sold any of the drugs that were involved. But yet and still, the federal government still held me accountable for 255 keys of crack cocaine.